Hi everyone, my name's Scott. Welcome today to our coffee and chat, talking about leadership today, and I'm joined by...
Hi everybody, I'm Stephen Fry and I am the Director of Digital and Customer Services over at Salford City Council.
Brilliant, cheers Steve. So we're going to do a few questions to Steve around leadership, and then we've got some other people that jump in at some point as well to give their take on how Steve performs from that perspective. So, first things first, Steve, let's get into the first question.
So it's like a 360-degree appraisal. I didn't know about this, Scott. Cheers.
Yeah, that's it.
Thanks.
Absolutely.
That's what they do.
Chuck you into the deep end.
Yeah,
That's how we do it. So we do it in Salford. So, first questions first. I want to talk about impact, I guess. So, how do you think successful leadership impacts team morale and productivity?
Not hugely. I think if you look at not specifically me, but external people, the likes of the Obamas, the likes of the Alex Fergusons, some great leaders out there who have impacted the way countries and cultures across the globe work. I think there's no doubt that a strong leader who has a vision, a culture, and is able to embed that and then empower people who work and serve under them is huge, really. And I've seen that personally. I've worked under great leaders who have given me a lot of mentoring and advice, and one of the things they said is make sure that you have that strong leadership team, make sure that you have people who understand your vision, make sure that you empower people, make sure that you listen, to understand people, because actually you don't have all the answers. And I think a strong leader does have a good set of ears.
Absolutely.
And that's important, but at the same time I think a strong leader is able to sort of execute and make the decisions and the tough decisions that other people might not be able to do, and has a vision that they stick to no matter how risky it might be, or how short or long term it is, just to execute the vision that they believe in. I think it is so important.
Of course, yeah, completely agree.
Yeah.
So Steve cares about me as a person, and I think my first conversation with him before I even started my role was about managing a full-time role with caring responsibilities, and he genuinely understands that like nobody else that I know at all, and he works with me to make sure that I can do my best at both, and he's inspired me to pass that on to everyone that I lead. So I take the same attitude to them as he's done with me. At the core, Steve is a truly nice person, and since working with him I've realised that the most important quality that I look for when I'm recruiting staff is that they need to be nice. Steve's got an amazing maverick way of leading us, to push us to always look for new and better ways to deliver the best service for residents and businesses. Nothing's off the table, and if we can show that Salford will be better for it and it's trailblazing, then he'll work with us to do it. And then he pushes us to go for awards and showcase what we've done. He believes in us, and who wouldn't want to work in an environment like that? It certainly makes succession planning and retention a lot easier.
So I guess, sort of going in a different tangent here, I want to talk about, I guess, how you approach some things rather than your feeling overall towards leadership. So I guess, how do you create a culture of transparency and sort of trust within the team? What do you sort of implore to your team to do that?
Yeah, so for people that do so my portfolio is quite a big portfolio. It's over 500 plus people, and I have a leadership team of 10 people. I empower them hugely. And communication between me and them is extremely regular. I think that's important, even if it is nothing on the agenda or it's just a listening ear. I think it's really important to meet regular, just to keep that relationship going. I think it genuinely is around devolving leadership, in my opinion. So for a person who's got a big portfolio, if you was hands-on to try and manage that, it'd be impossible getting into the weeds, because it's just too big a service to look at. So I have a strong leadership team on an individual and a collective level, and I think that's the power of it. I think individually they're all extremely strong in their own domains, but when there's an issue that needs sorting collaboratively, they're hugely collaborative team, and I think that's the difference. So, you know, just to sum up that question, I suppose, I devolve my leadership to them completely. I trust them. I have a saying that says, don't ask for permission, ask for forgiveness, and they use that quite a lot. And then when I need something fixing from them as a collective, they pull together like you've never seen before, and that's what makes them extremely strong, and it makes my job quite easy, if I'm being honest.
Since I started with Salford, Steve has always been very open and honest, and he speaks his mind, and this is what I like most about him. I've never had that honesty from a manager before, and I feel like I have a voice here at Salford. During our management meetings, Steve encourages critical conversations, and as a group we can talk openly and freely, and we are not afraid to put our ideas forward, exchange feedback to one another and create our own goals. Steve has created a culture where he encourages me to give my own opinion. He respects that and allows me to talk freely, come forward with my own ideas and lead my team in the way that I want to. Steve has this great saying, which I love, and it's one of my favourites, and I use it on a regular basis with my team. Don't ask for permission first, ask for forgiveness later, and I love this. It allows people to not be afraid of taking risks, within reason of course, and to deliver the results we need.
So really appreciate the clips that we've got from our colleagues on how Steve, you know, cultivates that, I guess, transparency and trust within the team, and sort of, we're going to have that theme throughout the whole video, I think. So that's really good to sort of engage with Steve's members and sort of give their take on how he performs. So next question, Steve, is, I guess, on the note of your team, how do you keep your team motivated during like low periods and like setbacks, you know, when something comes in and it really knocks you for 10? So
yeah, good question that, Scott. A difficult one, really. Inevitably, I think if you are talking digital and we're talking, you know, customer, etc., it's inevitable that there's plenty of setbacks in there, whether it's products that don't meet customer needs and demands, whether it's failure to deliver something on time. And we do have, again, I'd like to think, and I hope the clips are showing that, I've embedded a culture of that failing fast and trying things and not being, you know, scared to do that. And I think if you have that culture embedded and you have that permission culture for your staff and your leadership team, then the setbacks happen, because that's life. But they happen and they bounce back faster. Because they know that they're supported in the right way. So it isn't a blame culture, it isn't about, you know, chastising somebody and saying you've got that wrong, etc., or there's too much work on the plate. It genuinely is about, well, actually, how do we solve this as a team? And I think I referenced in that first question that you asked, I think having a solid collaborative leadership team from a mixed background and you know, a mixed domain specialism always helps that, because you can parachute different skill sets in at different times, and then I just feel that culture then means that you don't feel like you're lonely if something's gone wrong. You feel like you're part of a team that's going to either fix something or a leader who can make a decision to stop something if it's not working properly. Because there's no point in flogging dead horses sometimes, so hence that failing fast, you know, that permission culture, speak out fast, ask for help fast, and work as a team. But inevitably, I suppose, you know, there is going to be failures, and it is genuinely about how you bounce back to that goal that you set for the team and how you deliver on that, really.
Of course, yeah, absolutely. The goal is absolutely at the forefront, isn't it? And sort of, you know, it sounds like you've definitely built that like team morale and trust and sort of cultivated that within the team.
Yeah, and you know, some of the most important things is you know, you're not sat there being too serious as well. You can laugh about things, you can reflect on things, you can use some of that project management methodology, that reflection time and you know, post-project evaluations, just to learn from. So, you know, it's all about process, but then it's about being real and understanding where them, you know, failures may have come from and fixing them for the next time. I think that's the most important thing, isn't it?
Okay, cool, brilliant. Thank you for that, Steve.
That's a really good question, in fairness. There's a knack that Steve has with ourselves as members of the team where he knows the person, not the employee. So when it comes down to them personal skills of picking people up in them low moments or under pressure moments and everything else is key. He has this real knack of being able to talk to someone and tighten them off that topic slightly to refocus, but at the same time in a tactical way. Something he does with me plenty of times, and massive benefit of it as well in that high pressure environment at times. But yeah, absolutely brilliant how he gets to know the person more than the employee.
Perfect. So next question, Steve. How do you foster innovation and creativity within your team while balancing the need for productivity?
Okay. That's a golden question, really.
Yeah,
isn't it?
absolutely.
Yeah.
That's the winner. That's why everyone's tuned in.
This is this is the one where you know, you get under the skin of actually how we operate. So I've got to admit, it was a challenge that when I first took over a digital data and technology function, because demands on our services now are huge, given that there isn't a service that doesn't really rely on digital, so everybody's shouting from every crack in the wall. I think my advice and what we did was we redesigned the service, if I'm being quite honest, and we put key roles in place like delivery managers, a project management office, so that we could control workflow, pipeline, which you know, inevitably helps staff in terms of their well-being, their capabilities and their own development. So let me just drill into it because it is a very relevant question. So there's some key things. So a business plan. What is business as usual? What have you got to do in the year throughout the whole service? Because you have to do them things, patching, upgrades, you know, all them types of things have to do. Then there's staff development, which is key. Don't ever forget that. Your staff are your biggest asset. So if you don't develop and continually develop them with the right skills, then you're either going to lose them because they'll go somewhere else, or B, you're not able to innovate because actually they don't have the skill set to do them. So workforce development plans, both at an individual and a departmental level. And then I think there's the last thing, which when you're mature enough to do this, is to understand what your research and design opportunities are and empower the staff to do that. So at Salford, we'd like to think that we give all of our staff in digital data and technology a part of the week that allows them to do R&D, to look at what products, look at what is out there in terms of thought leadership, because we like to be at the forefront of that, whether that's AI, machine learning at the moment. We're looking at a lot of stuff around cyber, etc. So they are relevant topics. They're not going off doing something that doesn't add value to the business, but they're doing something that isn't BAU. And I think the trick to that again is making sure that you have robust, strong business plans across your department, and they're done collaboratively with your clients and customers, whether they're external or internal. Innovation will happen inevitably because the industry innovates, but I think it's important to acknowledge that your staff will want to do that as well for personal development in these types of roles.
Brilliant, yeah.
Steve's a firm believer in being at the forefront of things and trying new things out, so he really does foster that environment that gives everyone a chance to try things. He's a big believer in fail fast and ask for forgiveness, not permission. We're allowed and encouraged to test things out, try things out without a worry that if something goes wrong, it will be a big deal. You know, we iterate, we change as we move forward and just make sure we get the best out of something. It's obviously really important that we have goals and deadlines so that we can make sure that we are, productivity is up there. And Steve does expect that we have those defined and agreed, but having that means you've got the freedom to then be a bit more creative, have those conversations, it's a bit more free-flowing, because you know you've got your goals defined elsewhere. So one of the best things about working for Steve is his support and his vision. He really wants the best for Salford. He comes from Salford. He wants the best for the city and the people. So he absolutely pushes that vision forward and expects all of us to work in the same way. So he's passionate about Salford and the people, and that flows through into everything that we do. So he really does, live the values of Salford as we have them, of pride and passion, people, personal responsibility. He's a really inspiring leader, and gives us as much scope as we need and support to be able to be creative and think about different ways of doing things. It's all about making a difference, and it really epitomises. Steve really epitomises that concept.
So, fifth question, Steve. We've got one more after that.
Okay.
So, how do you ensure your team's goal align with the overall vision and strategy of the council? So, the mayoral's priorities.
Okay. So, two things. Collaboration is the key. So making sure that the department's business plan, i.e. DDAT's business plan, aligns with the service and directorate business plans. And that's extremely important to make sure that the work that you're doing and the development and the continuous improvement is in line with what practice may be across the organisation. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, it's sort of futile in terms of what you're doing, i.e. not getting the best value for money out of the staff time and also the assets time, I think. So we work very hard making sure that that's aligned. The second one I would say is that thought leadership. So I think I'm extremely lucky that I work for an organisation and in an organisation that sees digital data and technology as a key enabler to the organisation. So that allows me to also drive that thought leadership into the organisation. So let me give you an example. So when we're talking about assistive technology, or we're talking about AI, or we're talking about digital inclusion, actually these are corporate priorities that we will put into business plans that are acknowledged and executed by the organisation. So I'm lucky that I work in an organisation where I enable, but I'm also able to influence and thought leadership as well. And yeah, you're right, we have got an elected mayor, we have a strong corporate management team who have key priorities, and everything we do should align to them priorities. But I think what we've fostered as well within the organisation is the value of our delivery in terms of impact and outcomes to people. And I think, again, if you're looking at what differentiates us to a lot of other people, it's actually, does what we do have an impact? And if it doesn't, why? And why are we doing it? And that might be for staff, that could be for customers externally, any of our clients. It has to have some sort of outcome and impact, otherwise we don't do it. And that's our mantra that we follow in Salford.
Brilliant, perfect.
Although every day is different, we all come to work for the same thing: to achieve our vision, to create a better and fairer Salford and provide the best possible quality of life for the people of the city, which is underpinned by delivering our city mayoral priorities, which we've called the Great Eight. This vision gives colleagues direction and a shared sense of purpose. I'm Jane Betts, Service Manager for Business Rates, and I work with Steve. Steve provides strong values-based leadership and has helped develop a positive permission culture within customer services, where we're empowered to develop different ways of doing things to ensure we can respond to ever-changing environment. To make sure we're achieving our ambitions for Salford, we've developed a corporate business planning and performance framework. The framework creates a golden thread which runs through the priorities for our city, service group, team and individual objectives. Steve hosts quarterly customer service manager forums where officers are briefed on the key actions taking place in the coming year which contribute to the achievement of the council's priorities, and alongside service managers sets challenging goals that motivate people to have ownership, maximise performance and develop. It's also an opportunity for people to discuss and solve problems and also celebrate achievements.
Okay, I've got one final question for you, Steve.
This is the hardest one.
This is the hardest one. No, this is, I guess, not tapping into, culture and stuff. It's more about, you as an individual, and I guess how reactive you are, and I guess how you handle your team and situations. So obviously your role's quite varied in what you do. What's the thing you do most frequently from being a leader?
Okay. Wow, interesting question. So, I'm a very reflective leader, I would like to think, a compassionate one, in a couple of ways. I hope the clips say this. Honestly, I'm not saying this now, you know, to buzz up or anything, but I have an extremely strong and capable leadership team, which makes my job easier in very many, you know, aspects of it. And I see my job as the director of digital and customer to be that voice of the customer. So I go out regular to listen to people, network, client side, all stuff that anybody in the private or public sector would do. And I think I come back, and a lot of my work is advocating on behalf of people, staff, customers, in a very in neutral way. So actually feeding back in one-to-ones and things to my leadership team around what the feeling is out there in the organisation, what feedback we're getting from customers, so that they can sort of go back and put that right. And I think, you know, without a shadow of a doubt, that's what they do. They fix things. They carry on, you know, making sure that everything's continually improving, and I think that makes my job a lot more easy, and the messages that I give to them a lot more easier. So so two things for me key. What I do a lot of is listen to them to make sure that they've got the right support, they've got the right leadership, and the understanding of the organisation and what, you know, the people want from us. And the second most important one is to be the advocate for people who are using our services and make sure that I bridge that gap.
Yeah, absolutely. That's literally what I was going to touch on. It sounds like you're bridging that gap for your team. You're being that front face for that. So,
and I think it's important for a director, a senior leader, whatever you're called within your organisation, to make sure that you do that, because I think you can get consumed in thinking that you've got the best service, the right one, the one that everybody wants to work on, without understanding and speaking to actually the people who use it and consume it, whether that's staff or customers. Then that's just very anecdotal, isn't it? And I think it's incumbent on leaders to sometimes get their hands dirty and listen to what people think of their service.
Reflecting. That'd be quite hard at times, but absolutely.
Because it does make you that reflective leader. You do get into that, you know, that listening culture, that understanding what people want, and actually that shapes, just back to your other questions, your style, your priorities, your leadership, your culture, your workforce development, you know, your EDI stuff, all the stuff that is extremely important to a department and an organisation. Without listening to people to understand how they feel and what they want, how do you run a department? Would be my question to anybody that doesn't do that.
It's about listening to the end user, isn't it? Who's using it? Whether that's a colleague, whether that's a customer.
And then I'll probably drag this out a bit. I think when you understand digital and you understand its impact on public sector / public service reform, so data, insight, you know, applications, skills, the whole gambit, you understand how important digital is to public service reform. And I think that's something that, again, I would, you know, I say to people, listen, if you work in the public sector or the private sector, I think do not underestimate the power of digital as a key enabler and a driver in some of the reforms that will happen over the next 5 to 10 years. It will be key. But I think one thing is, remember that actually it's about people, not technology at the same time. And I think the future of leadership within the role that I do makes, you have to have that organisational development, that learning development aspects around your leadership style as well, and it's not just about pump priming applications and the latest tech and things like that, because otherwise people will get left behind.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's been brilliant, Steve. Thank you for joining us today.
A pleasure.
And thank you for our audience as well. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
Hope everyone enjoyed the clips, and thank you for our team for jumping in and talking about Steve and sort of, voicing how brilliant he can be at sometimes, I guess. Just sometimes, though.
I know, I can't wait to see these clips.
So, thank you very much, everyone, and we'll see you all soon.
Take care, bye-bye, thank you.